And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget, coming up Saturday, it is the Boise Music Festival. We're so excited. Baby Back, Parmalee, Billy, Willie, and Nilly, and Philly. All kidding aside, it's going to be an awesome event. We hope that you can come see us and have a great time. We'll be giving you tickets throughout the week. And, again, the 9th annual Boise Music Festival. Let's go to our friend Mark Lauder joining us from the RNC in Washington, D.C. Of course, when you hear me pumping up these local events, Mark, probably takes you back in time when you were doing local news in Indianapolis. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
No, I have to ask you, did you cover the Pan Am Games?
No, I was in high school at the time.
No
but,
way.
I do remember marching in the as a band member. They assembled what was I think the world's largest marching band. I think we had 15 or 20 high schools that marched in those opening ceremonies, and I was part of that long time ago.
Well, let me apologize for being too inside. The Pan Am Games were in 1988-87 in Indianapolis. I was stationed at Fort Harrison before they closed it down, so I digress. But anyway. Mark, let's talk a little bit about what everybody's talking about, and it really should be the IG testimony yesterday, but it's immigration. There's a lot of pressure on the administration, but really President Trump is doing what the people elected him to do, is protect our borders.
Absolutely, and it really comes down to one just fundamental question of do we enforce our laws? Do we enforce the border laws? And it's really important for people to remember that for a family or an individual who wants to come and claim asylum in our country, if they enter our country through one of the ports of entry and make that asylum claim, they're not breaking the law. They won't be separated from their children, and their case will be heard. What we are talking about here are people who are illegally crossing the border, and then when they are caught breaking the law, that's when they're trying to claim asylum, and that's when the justice system gets involved. And you, as you would with almost any crime, when you're detaining someone, you don't detain the children in jail or in a holding facility while criminal charges are pending.
Mark Lauder joining us from the RNC, and yet you have this massive outcry. What do you make of the move yesterday in Congress where they're trying to pass an emergency bill? You have the majority leader making statements. You cover this all the time. Your thoughts?
Well, I think Congress does need to act, and this is a problem that is decades in the making. There was a story that I saw yesterday from the New York Times back in 2014 where President Obama was asking Congress to do something because the laws at the time, which were passed toward the end of George W. Bush's term, were creating a problem with children, unaccompanied children at that point, coming across the border from Central America. And the president asked Congress to do something then. It's clear that our laws have not kept up with the needs. There are loopholes that people are trying to take advantage of. And unlike President Obama, who just made law the way he felt via executive fiat, this is a president who believes in the rule of law. And so we need Congress to not just put a Band-Aid on the system, to actually fundamentally overhaul our immigration system so we close the loopholes, secure the border, and treat people humanely who are either here as DACA recipients or those who are coming across our borders and seeking asylum.
Mark, what do you say, though, to the people that have bought the Democratic propaganda that the president could stop this with a statement and such? And a little background for everyone: President Obama, now former President Obama, really had a loose interpretation of the laws. He didn't follow them strictly, but the president can't just make things up as he goes, can he?
No, and I think for the people who are calling for the president to make a call or write a statement to change this are forgetting the rest of the sentence. And what they're asking the president to do is to make a call and tell the Attorney General or the Department of Homeland Security to stop following the law, stop enforcing the law, and just let these thousands of people who are coming into our country illegally, just let them walk, let them go into the country, and hopefully, in most cases, we'll never see nor hear them again, even if a court orders them to come back for a hearing years down the road. And that's not something the president's going to do. And one of the reasons why he's taking such a strong stance on this is that even if we listened to what those in the media and the liberal left want, what we're doing is creating another massive population of people who are here illegally that 5, 7, 10 years down the road, we're going to have another DACA situation. We're going to have another situation where when we try to deal with the people who were illegally here, that, well, they've been here for 10 years and you're going to send them back. No, we've got to deal with the issue now. This is a president who's not going to kick the can down the road to some future president to deal with, which is what we're dealing with from decades gone by.
Indeed. Mark Lauder, let's go back to how do you get past the optics where you have, this reporter from Playboy and CNN going after Sarah Sanders, not really trying to make a point. It was like he was cutting a wrestling promo. It was so disturbing. And, of course, the liberal left soaked it up and said, oh, this is good stuff, and they applauded him for it. I mean, is there really a place for that?
No, and it's unfortunate, and it's where we've gotten to in this society, and we need to come back to an era where we can have disagreements with people, but not be disagreeable when we're doing it, and at least showing some certain level of respect for people who are either in office or who are working in government at any level. That even though we disagree, we still need to show a certain level of respect. And it's unfortunate that that's where we have gotten to. The media feeds into this because it drives their ratings. But the good thing is that this is a president who ran on a platform and is talking about things in office that aren't necessarily politically correct and aren't easy to solve. And where other presidents, other elected officials might just say one thing but do nothing, this is a president who believes in doing what needs to be done. Even if it's not popular, this is an issue that needs to be addressed. And just like we have seen with North Korea, with Iran, with trade imbalances that put our workers at risk, and immigration, President Trump is going to take the tough stand. He's going to have a difficult conversation with the American people when it's necessary. And he's going to tackle these issues that have been for so long ignored and pushed under the rug. He's going to bring it out and talk about it and move the ball forward.
Mark, how much of a challenge is it as someone who worked in the administration and now on the periphery? What are they facing? Because it's a barrage. You've got Lester Holt and everybody, the anchor of the week down there. They're playing one side of the story. And unfortunately, a lot of people that don't listen to this radio station, KIDO Talk Radio, only hear that one side of the story. And they go, I feel sorry for those kids being taken away. How do your former colleagues handle that immense pressure inside the bubble?
Well, I think they've got to just they've got to do what they're doing, which is just keep their heads down, keep working on the problem, seeking a solution. And I was in the White House yesterday, spoke to my dear friend Sarah Sanders for a good 20 minutes or so, catching up with her. And that's what they're focused on doing. And when we start letting the emotion of the issues cloud the real policy discussion that we need to have, and we need Congress to act. And the president went last night and talked to the House Republicans. They're working on some bills. We need Republicans to come together, pass meaningful immigration reform that meets the 4 pillars that the president has laid out. And then let's have that conversation, but let's fix the problem as part of that solution. And I think they're doing a great job. It's definitely a challenge. But one great thing, and it's one of the reasons why the president is so prolific on Twitter and other social media, is because he can take his message directly to the people, bypass the liberal elites media in New York and Washington, D.C., and communicate directly with the people about where he wants to take our country and how he's going to make it great again.
107.5 FM, 580 AM. Mark Lauder joining us from the RNC. Mark, a couple more questions here this morning. You talked to Sarah Sanders. It must have been a challenge for her last week. And again, you must have felt for her. We did. We don't even know her. When CBS came up with a story that she's leaving, and instead of focusing in, as you know, all great press people, it's not about them. It's about the principle. It's about the message. It's about the administration. She's got to answer questions about her own future.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a little bit of the way Washington works these days is, it's more about speculation and palace intrigue stories, because if they didn't cover that, they'd have to cover the growing economy or for the fact that people have more money in their pockets or that jobs are coming back. And so they choose to focus on just the palace intrigue and those kinds of things. And Sarah was very clear. She was actually at, I believe it was a concert with one of her young children for the end of the school year when this story came out, and no one had even included a comment from her on that. And it was quickly clarified, and then they just move on.
Speaking of moving on, Mark, what about yesterday where you've got Trey Gowdy and House Republicans just grilling this Inspector General report? Your thoughts on that, and what does it mean for the country?
Well, I think it's great that the Inspector General put out the report and really brought to light the level of animus and outright hostility that some people at the very highest levels of the Department of Justice and the FBI showed to the president during the campaign, and the fact that it was rightfully called out by the Inspector General that there were actually indications that people were taking or using the official power of government, their office, to possibly take action based on their personal political leanings. And that's just something that we cannot tolerate as a country. What I would say is that this is also just scratching the surface of the problem. This was a report that just focused on the Hillary Clinton email investigation. And at the end of the report, it starts to transition because the FBI agent that was heading that investigation, who talked about the need for an insurance policy against the president, who talked openly about stopping the president from taking office, he moved over from that investigation to lead the Russia investigation. Those reports are still yet to come on the Russia investigation, on the abuse of the surveillance courts that were allowed to surveil American citizens
right.
of their political opposition. Those reports are still coming. And that's where I think we're really going to see what happened and the level of treachery that was shown by some at the FBI.
Well, and, again, Mark, you were working for the vice president when he was the governor, but the stories about James Rosen and what happened with the IRS and others, those stories, those need to be brought to light. Those need to be investigated. Those people need to be held accountable. I mean, FISA courts on a journalist that kind of were just shuffled under the rug.
Yeah, it's absolutely clear through all of this that the Obama administration weaponized government against their political opposition, whether it was on reporters, whether it was the IRS and conservative-leaning non-for-profits and other groups, and now what we've seen with the FBI. And it really is something that the American people can't tolerate. We saw this kind of activity happen before in the 60s and 50s under J. Edgar Hoover, and Congress put a stop to it because the American people expected better. And now we're seeing those kinds of trends start to surface again, and Congress is absolutely correct in the need to stamp that out and to make sure that at every level of the FBI, it reflects the great work that's being done on a daily basis by the thousands of men and women who are out there in the offices across this country. Their leadership should reflect the great work that is taking place every day. And unfortunately, what we saw is some at the highest levels did not live up to that standard.
And Mark, finally, what do you say to the, some of the spineless folks in the Senate, Republicans and Democrats, that are giving into this hysteria?
Well, the first off, I would say is that they need to do their jobs and to pass comprehensive immigration reform. And the other thing I would say, and this is not just to our elected leaders, but also to the party faithful and those out there, we've got to get back to a time where getting 90% of what you want is okay. It doesn't mean that you give up that last 10% or that you stop campaigning for it or calling for it or working towards it. But when it comes to enacting legislation, which sometimes requires compromise, we've got to be able to get to yes. And if 90% is what we can get to, then let's do that. And we can have the discussion over that last 10% later. Don't hold our elected officials responsible for the fact they didn't get 100%. Elected officials should not have to feel like they can't vote yes because it doesn't give them everything they want. Unfortunately, we cannot govern by just getting everything or nothing because nothing ever gets done.
Mark Lauder, we appreciate it. We kept you over, but great intel today. And, playing band during the Pan Am game, that was so big for Indianapolis back in the day.
Yes, it was.
Thank you, sir. You have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
All right, Mark Lauder joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning here, 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Coming up next, the city of Boise weighs in on the border. I didn't know we had a border with Mexico in Boise, or border with Canada. Details next. Liberal leadership taking over, or perhaps some compassion coming out of City Hall. We'll talk about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Well, we've got a lot to catch up on. Big news last night. Geraldo and Hannity getting into it. Big Sean laying the smackdown on Geraldo. Everybody else going back and forth on this. How much people spent on their gubernatorial campaigns. A lot going on. Thank you all for joining us. Don't forget God and Country. We will be there. We are the official station of God and Country. Well, the Treasure Valley God and Country Festival. That will be in Nampa coming up Tuesday. Gates open at 4. It is a free event. We hope to see you there. You're going to see Unspoken. You're going to see Nick Vujicic. You're going to hear Nick Vujicic. You're going to hear Maddie from American Idol. And plus, you're going to get some inspiration. And it's such a wonderful way to kick off the summer, and free fireworks. Check them out on Facebook, Treasure Valley God and Country Festival.com, or on Facebook, or you can go to our blog, KIDOTalkRadio.com, why you should go to God and Country. It is amazing. Coming up next, does the city of Boise represent God and Country, at least the government? Don't want to throw the entire city in it, but first, traffic. And this just in, Boise Mayor Dave Beater and members of the Boise City Council called upon Idaho's congressional delegation to end the Trump administration's policy separating immigrant children from their parents at the nation's southern border. In a resolution approved this evening in a letter to Idaho's senators and representatives, this policy states that bluntly it's un-American. We are outraged. We cannot, in good conscience, remain silent in the face of the administration's repugnant policy and its sheer offensiveness to our community's moral and ethical standards and those of our nation. Well, this is out of the old Mayor Beater playbook. And Mayor Beater can be the mayor of Boise for as long as he wants. And if you're a conservative, if you're a Republican, if you live in the city of Boise, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we don't have a more effective opposition to the liberals in the city of Boise. Now, liberals they're mistaken, they're troubled, but they're good people. And troubled by it means we don't agree with them. You take a look at the liberal influence. This has nothing to do with Mayor Beater, has nothing to do with the city council. Now, with respect, if the city council wants to do something about it, maybe they should go to the border and they could foster some of these kids. That way they could have a good environment. They could be in their homes. And wouldn't we all want to foster kids? Wouldn't we all want to go to the border and help these beautiful children? But that does not neglect or negate the complacency of the parents. You know, Donald Trump is doing something that's uncomfortable. And whether you've bought a bunch of books that you haven't read, like me, much to Mrs. Miller's chagrin, or you've read books, or you've studied people that are successful, what is the number one thing to being successful? Or one of the top things? You have to learn to be uncomfortable. And that's what the president is doing. Here you have, again, this is a city council and a mayor that jumped in and said, hey, we love Obamacare. It's great. Let's pass a non-binding resolution. And this proves that, again, a lack of diversity in the city, a lack of diversity in Boise. This has nothing to do with the city of Boise. But, again, they're trying to make some type of political points. I don't know why. That just seems to be the way it is. And my thought on this is if they want to do something, go to the border. By the way, again, let me go out on thin ice here. We still have the rainbow flags up, right? I got into this debate last night because somebody called me a hater, a blank hater, because of my simple questions about Pride Fest. Look, Pride Fest is there. I didn't agree with it. I don't agree with the city using its resources and officially endorsing something if they're not going to endorse everything. But the subtlety, a week before, 2 weeks before Pride, you have the rainbow flags up. A week or two after, they're still up on every city landmark. Now, if you ever try and do work with the city, that's not an easy thing. You talk to nonprofit groups. Here's a little secret that the city of Boise doesn't want you to know. And to everybody else that lives in the free land in the Treasure Valley, I'm sorry, but no one ever talks about this because of the iron grip of the Beater administration on everyone. And if you want to do business, you better be good boys. So here's the skinny. To do business with the city of Boise, if you're a nonprofit group, they charge the heck out of you. They never get back with you. There's either serial incompetence or they're complicit with not caring. Remember the story we broke? And no, you're going, no, Kevin, I have a life. Years ago where the city charged the veterans for the Veterans Day parade? Remember that? And you think to yourself, well, surely we should honor veterans. Where is our Veterans Fest? Where is our Veterans Pride? Where is our salute? Well, you have one day, guys. Get in and get done and get going. The city government, if it is to be objective, if the city government is to be real, if it should be credible, it should be objective. And this picking winners and losers, condemning the immigration policy. I don't know. Has anybody in city council been to the border? I don't know. And the other thing is, okay, with all due respect, if you're going to endorse the Pride, then you should endorse the veterans. You should endorse everyone. But that's not the way it works, in my opinion. I'd love to hear yours next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. Out to London. Simon Owen joining us with the very latest on the post-summit reaction. Simon, good morning.
Hey, Kevin. Morning.
Good to have you with us here at KIDO Talk Radio, Fox News Radio. So the war games have been canceled?
Yes, and it's official now. This was something that President Trump announced as he wrapped up his summit last week with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. He said that these military exercises, which the U.S. Carries out with South Korea, would be suspended. These are drills which often involve hundreds of thousands of troops. They look very dramatic. There are many explosions, and North Korea has always hated them. It's described them as a rehearsal for an invasion of North Korea. Well, President Trump said that he feels these are provocative exercises at a time when he's trying to make peace with the North Koreans. Also says that these exercises are expensive, and as a result, he is going to halt them. Now, at first, it appears the South Koreans were initially blindsided by this announcement because their first response to reporters, when they were asked, what about this cancellation, they said they were still waiting for clarity from the White House on what the president meant when he said this publicly. But a week on, we do have confirmation now from both the US and South Korea that the next joint exercise in the diary, which was set for August, has indeed been suspended, and subsequent drills will be decided on at a later date.
Well, I guess that's a victory for the North Koreans. Of course, they have canceled these on and off, but they are pretty efficient, and they show the unity between the Americans and the South Koreans, considering it's still an active war zone.
Well, these are the US and South Korea are technically still at war with North Korea, and the argument goes that this is about battle readiness. And there has been, I think you can potentially sense a note of reluctance on the South Korean side, because when the foreign minister announced that these were being cancelled, she put it like this. She said, "I think we've made it clear this is a goodwill gesture to strengthen dialogue momentum. It's not irreversible." And she said that the exercises could be reinstated if the dialogue loses speed, or if North Korea doesn't live up to its denuclearization commitment. It is a concession from the US side, and in terms of the sort of current crisis about nuclear weapons, North Korea hasn't offered anything in return. But it may be that the Trump administration feels that let's give it a few months, give it some breathing space, and see what the North Koreans come up with. What we don't know is how long they're willing to give them. If we're still waiting in 3 months for any kind of timetable or proper plan from North Korea about getting rid of its weapons, is 3 months the deadline? Will they give them 6 months or 12 months? How long will it take before these exercises are reinstated? And there are some experts who say that, this is a big chip to give away, because if you do this, then it's all very well cancelling them, but reinstating them would be very provocative and would leave the North Koreans furious. So, look, it's a gamble, and it's part of President Trump's efforts to show that his unusual diplomacy, his disruptive diplomacy, can yield results. But it's too soon to know just which way it's going to go yet.
Simon, you'll be on it. We appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Our great friend Simon Owen joining us from London exclusively through our relationship with Fox News Radio. Remember, when you hear Fox News Radio on the radio in the Treasure Valley, whether it's Sean Hannity, whether it's Glenn Beck, whether it's Kevin Miller, you're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Don't forget Boise Music Fest. We hope to see you coming up this Saturday. Going to be a good time. Speaking of a good time, it is Good Time Cindy joining us from Caldwell at KIDO Talk Radio.
Yes, Kevin, I do have a good time in Marsing. I have a great time over in Emmett, but I stay clear of Boise. I wouldn't even put money in a parking meter to support anything they do. And you know what? They are as much rigid ideologues as that council there. I go to my council. As you know, I was there 2 nights ago. And I've already asked our mayor to be supportive of some events next year for Flag Day and Memorial Day, and we have some great things going on here. But you know what? We are right now in America, I would say, and I'm reading a great book about the Ten Commandments as a Decalogue, and I will apply that because a nation can't exist and continue to disintegrate without private property rights, borders, well, this nation anyway, unless you want to go floating around like in Europe. And I find it despicable. I wake up this morning, I'm not picking on who chooses your news, but once again, I wake up to hear I've got to listen to somebody else being as disrespectful as they can on the news with the big F word. I am so sick of their animus, their hostility, their total venom. Listening, I don't even want a soundbite of Nancy Pelosi. What a hypocrite. And seriously, you know, you people, the only thing I could say to Boise, why don't you do this? I support Angel Tree. You know, you have men and other people that are ripped apart from their families in your jail system. What a joke. I've been there, you know, when DCYS comes in, because I was a school nurse teacher, and if you have problems with kids and they come to you and the parents are suspect of whatever X, Y, Z, the children go to just what they did. If the parents disobey a law in America, they may go to jail. And depending upon the judge, they may sit there for a while. So what a bunch of Harper Valley PTA hypocrites. Go build a decent prison, jail, correctional center. Some of those people you're sending off to wherever, Texas or wherever, you know, they're fathers. And I'm so sick of their hypocrisy. You know, you can't have a nation without borders. And great intel this morning. And that needs to be clear. It's not like these people came to a portal of entry where then they can, you know, express their complaint. They use their children as shields. How despicable on the other side of it for a parent to know and to use your child that you're sneaking around and sneaking through, and then you're going to use the children. But
Cindy, they're being rewarded by the press. And look, you have the Republicans that are going, oh, we want to do something.
Does that surprise you with this Republican Party? You know, you had one firebrand.
What do you want to say to them?
Actually, I am not. I want to say nothing anymore to the Republicans in Idaho, except I'm getting over the heartbreak. You had a firebrand, which Mark Levin called, and he is a friend of Sean Hannity's because I can use his name, in 2010, and that was Raul Labrador. And to me, the people of Idaho threw him.
Mark is a friend of mine too.
I didn't know that.
Mark
Kevin.
and I go back to actually before I knew. Well, no, I met them about the same time. So.
Well,
Mark's actually a bigger fan
of
mine.
the same caliber, so why would that surprise me?
Mark's actually a bigger fan of mine than Sean is. So.
Well, why would that surprise me? Because you are of that caliber, and thank heavens, you know, the media, they hate the idea of America. They're really Hegel Marxists, you know, to boot, and they will rely on emotionalism. So this party, you know, could have stayed stick and struck and strong. I mean, President Obama with his poison pen, how you have...
But Cindy, here's one thing that I'd like for you to address. What do you say to people that look at you, that look at me, that look at the president and say, we're breaking up families? And I will tell you, there are people here in the Treasure Valley. I had somebody very close to me last night start, questioning this, and I'm going, whoa, they didn't have to come here, and who's to say they're being threatened? As Donald Trump said yesterday, it was brilliant. I need to find it. The lawyers give them the script because Obama's lawyers told them what to do, say that you're being persecuted, and then you get the free life in America.
Exactly what you said. So you do this. You say what you mean, like the president. You mean what you say, and you don't have to say it mean. The tragedy in America is that people rely on emotional statements, and the left has used emotionalism instead of facts over and over and over again. And yes, the truth of the matter is, why are they separating the families? Why in America, when you disobey a law and you happen to be a parent, you may have to go off to jail, and then you've got to figure out where that child can be best placed. So you say what you mean what you say, but you don't have to equivocate. You don't have to. These laws were already on the books. People that come here, try going to Algeria, try going to Indonesia, try going to China, Tibet, any other nation that wants to remain a nation. And the Democrats know full well, because we know what happens after an election, or who votes for who for stuff, and they've done it time and again. So you just continue to know the facts. These are the facts. These are the laws on the books. This is a law.
We appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you more than you'll probably ever realize.
You're making me
God bless you.
You're making me blush, Cindy. God bless.
Well, God bless you too, Kevin. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. We've got the Inspector General report. You might have heard Sean talk about it yesterday. Trey Gowdy, unfiltered, uncensored. You'll hear his complete scorching of James Comey in his opening statements. We'll get your thoughts on that. The deep state is firing back. Who are you with? And by the way, you'll also hear the city of Boise saying, we condemn the immigration policy. What type of America are we living in? Let's find out next. 580-5436. You're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Hank joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Hank. I wonder what you're going to talk about.
Good morning. Good morning. I think Mayor Beater, the policies were going on during Obama's administration. Mayor Beater used to have a thrill up his leg because he got to ride in the plane with Barack Obama, and there wasn't a word or a peep out of Mayor Beater about immigrants, kids being separated from their parents, which was definitely going on during Mr. Obama's administration, and yet Mayor Beater didn't have a lot to say about it. So, again, it gets back to what I was saying before. Mayor Beater's father was a professor at Boise State. You go through Boise State, it's the who's who of the Democrat Party. The Republicans in the past have kicked the can down the road. They had not gotten reform in terms of getting actual political diversity out in our universities, and Boise State is the worst of the bunch. Jeff Sessions stated Boise intolerance in terms of conservative groups. Boise State is up there probably number one for its intolerance towards things like the college Republicans or any conservative groups out there. There's specific discrimination by the administration out there at Boise State. And our taxpayers are paying to have a training ground for Democrats and embedding the Democrat Party in Boise. We're paying for it out of our tax dollars. So I'll leave you with that.
So you're saying it's all coming from Boise State. That is the root of the Democratic Party in the state of Idaho. Boise State, of course, going against Boise State is not a good thing. You want popularity, you just say, I love Boise State, and you're in.
Well, the thing is that you can't do anything when Boise State does something to violate rights. You can't find a lawyer here in town because Boise State's grown so much that all the legal business that if a lawyer's on the other side of Boise State, you're going to be hard to find business here in Boise. So, the power, as this school grows, the more it gets more difficult to rein them in. This is the problem. They're so rooted in the power structure, and this is true of any university town. You can go to Austin in Texas, University of Texas, and I can tell you right there that the Democrat dominance is there. Or you can go to Lane County in Eugene, Oregon, and the University of Oregon.
What do you make of Beater jumping into this fray like he did with health care and everything else? You say to yourself, shouldn't this guy worry about the onerous taxes that he puts on businesses and individuals in the city of Boise?
Well, he's using the bar basically try to use his position and his party and his structure for a springboard for this eventual revitalization of the Democrat Party in the state of Idaho, and basically it's anchored in Ada County. They can stand to lose almost all their seats outside of Ada County in these next reapportionments, because I was going through the statistics as I've been going through them. They're going to be lucky to hold District 26 and some of the other Democrats like Blaine County and some of those areas because the new reapportionments coming up is going to further dilute Democrat strength in various parts of the state, and they're going to be more or less confined to Ada County. But
they're growing. They're growing in Ada County, though.
Well, yes, they're growing in Ada County, but the growth to a certain extent is confined. They have not broken. The key in the battle right now is whether or not they can take over the 15th legislative district. That's been their goal for a long time, and then move into Eagle but there's been no indication that Democrat strength has been growing in the outlying areas of Meridian. A lot of the people that are coming from the rest of the state won't go out there, and they're basically conservative refugees from other states that are trying to get away from liberals.
Hank, great point. Good morning, Dave. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up next, a big day in Washington where you have several members of Congress ripping the Inspector General's report, and news you're not going to hear anywhere else. I mean, silly rabbit, tricks are for kids. There was a bias. There was a coup attempt to derail Trump's election. We'll give you the details next and your phone calls. Stay tuned, won't you?